Hi guys, it's the TheLuchamediageek here again for the Burns redo. Changing pace a little here for this week's selection of movie. We've had basically a look at a horror franchise so far in the Scream movies, and we've looked at independent horror with the After Dark originals that we've looked at so far. We've looked at horror movies and quite modern stuff, and I got to pick this week's selection, and I picked the cinematic classic Casablanca for a couple of reasons. A, I wanted to, like I say, shift gears for the channel, and B, I absolutely love this movie, and I'll go into why. Casablanca is a strange film because it's one of them. It's one of the sacred cows of cinema. It's one of them where everyone should really have seen it, and quite a few people I know either haven't seen it, who are really into movies, or they have seen it but not in a long time. Casablanca is really one of them old classic movies that's worth checking out. Now, I'm somewhat, how can I put it, suspicious of these great sacred movies in the canon that you've got to check out. For example, I know this is going to make myself sound like a complete Philistine, but I recently sat through Lawrence of Arabia, David Lean's big epic, and I'm like, okay, Lawrence of Arabia, let's do it. I'm ready to be blown away by the experience. And I was like, bunch of guys in the desert. An hour later, bunch of guys in pretty much the same patch of desert. Bored now, moving on. But I remember I saw Casablanca. I didn't see it as a child. I saw Casablanca when I was about 23, 24, and I watched it Christmas Day. Completely stuffed up Christmas dinner. Couldn't be bothered moving. So, oh, what the hell, I should probably take a look at it. And was spellbound. Very quick breakdown of the plot. It of course stars Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman, Paul Henreid, and it's set in the country of Casablanca during the Second World War, and it deals with the plight of refugees. It deals with a question not often dealt with in a lot of war movies before or since, in that when there's a war, what happens if you're stuck in a place and can't get out? Casablanca is basically a neutral buffer zone. It isn't occupied by the Nazis, but it's not free either. Once you're there, you can't really move on to safer territories. So yeah, you find that a lot of the characters in there have escaped from somewhere else, either the war or their own personal demons, and can't get out. The film was based on a play, a stage play, and that much is evident because a great deal of the film takes place in Rick's bar, Rick being the character immortally played by Humphrey Bogart. And now I'm going to get into the reasons why I love this movie. It's a love story where love has consequences. The problem with this film, when you look at it, is it's a cultural icon, and it's been lampooned and spoofed so much that even if you haven't seen it, you'll have seen key scenes or heard key speeches, in all the gin joints in all the world. She has to walk into mine, here's looking at you, kid, all that. But here's the thing, and this is a love story where love has consequences. Basically, the character of Rick owns the cafe, and the love of his life, Ilsa, played by Ingrid Bergman, comes into his cafe, and she's his former lover. And she basically comes in with her new beau, Victor Laszlo, who is leading the resistance against the Germans. And the thing I love about it is basically the characters played by Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman have been clear, deep, passionate love, which you don't know too much about until a flashback scene halfway through the movie. But it is clear that this love, or the breaking of this romantic relationship, has broken Rick. It's fantastically played in Humphrey Bogart's performance, because you've got to see this in the context of the time. This is a film where men were stoic and buried their feelings, and there's a scene where, because he's seen her after years, seen her with a new beau, he basically gets drunk off his ass and sits there crying. you see that this is a broken man, and that's really effective. I have a real problem with the way romance is treated now, even in cinema, and very much in popular culture. Relationships with men and women, not to make myself sound too puritanical, but it seems to be, they were the love of my life, they were the love of my life, it's over, I'll never find someone else, what'll I do? Ooh, friend request! And everything seems a bit transient. Here it basically says, love is important. If you make that commitment to someone, it's going to hurt. You have to give something of yourself in it. Another reason why you need to check out this movie is it's beautifully shot. It was directed by a guy called Michael Curtiz, and he was Warner's go-to guy. It was produced very much within the studio system back when Warners were producing pretty much a movie a week, and it had a lot of different screenwriters messing with bits. They had a big problem with the ending. The ending, and there's a spoiler here if you haven't seen it, is beautiful. Rick basically sacrifices his relationship with Ilsa. They've fallen back in love, if indeed they ever fell out of love, and so that she can be with the guy she's married to now, because his work is very important and to the war effort, and he cannot function without her. I mean, that's where the speech, you know, I'm not going to be a noble kid, but the problems of two people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world. He's literally saying, this is important, this is bigger than us. And yes, and it's difficult to see the importance of that message, but you've got to, again, you've got to look at the film in the context of the time it was made. World War II had just started for America, and what a lot of historians now like to say is basically the minute Pearl Harbor happened, America was into the war. No, they weren't. A lot of people were still saying, why the hell are we in this after Pearl Harbor occurred? What Casablanca does brilliantly is Rick is not playing Rick in Humphrey Bogart is not just playing Rick in this movie. He is playing America itself. There's lines of dialogue in the movie where Rick is literally described by another character as an isolationist, as America pretty much was pre-1941 and the attacks on Pearl Harbor. And over the course of the film, Rick, being America, is dragged by events back into the war effort. And basically the whole thing is a metaphor for people. It's essentially a propaganda piece, but it's so closely tied into the movie, I didn't mind that, because you watch it and it's basically the scriptwriters going, there's bad shit going down in Europe and we need to commit to this because these guys need to be stopped. There's a great scene in the movie where a bunch of German officers come in and start into the cafe and start singing their own national anthem, essentially. And it's great because the patrons of the cafe, who are French, sing their own anthem and drown out the German officers, forcing them to leave. Now, on one level, yeah, it's just a bunch of people screaming, but it's such a beautiful moment. It's a sign of resistance, because, you know, at the end of the day, if the Nazis had won the war, this would not be such a good thing. And I find that really moving and powerful. The supporting performances are brilliant. You've got a guy called Sidney Greenstreet, who plays another cafe owner who's slightly more oily, called Ferrari. Now this guy is fantastic in the small part he's in. He's like this really greasy, fat gangster type who's yet still noble. George Lucas has basically said, see Jabba the Hutt, that's Sidney Greenstreet in Casablanca. You know, I literally took that idea. In fact, to be honest, you go in and you see the cafe in the movie, and it's pretty much like the bar from Star Wars, or you have all the eccentric characters kind of thing. The performances are great, the dialogue is incredibly witty even now, it still holds up, and there are a lot of gags, and when you consider those were written around a much more strenuous censorship code, they're very, very risque. I'll let you pick those out. Like I said, the performances are great, there's genuine chemistry between the characters, and one small thing I want to say, because I don't want to go on and on. All movies have a MacGuffin, right? A MacGuffin is the thing that the characters are going for, searching for. Sometimes it's a person. For example, in Star Wars, the MacGuffin, the thing they're all searching for, is Princess Leia and the rebel plans inside the droid. But more often than not, it's literally just a thing. A thing. For example, Alfred Hitchcock hated them. They were a device to keep the plot moving, and they literally feel just like a workaday function. In Casablanca, they don't. There's papers of transit that people need to leave. People die for these things. They are tied into the plot. They're not just something for people to chase after. One other thing I'd like to say is there's a fantastic villain in this called Major Strasser. And the whole movie is so classy and so underplayed. He's the villain who does not raise his voice once, but this guy radiates menace. It's all implied threats. There's a bit where he goes up to the character of Ilsa and says, well, you could come with me, but I just want to remind you that if you don't, in Casablanca, human life is cheap. You know, in no way has he said, I'm going to kill you, but he has. And that was back when, you know, you had talented people writing scripts. The film is so good. I could wax hyperbolic about this movie all day. There's a song in there as time goes by. You've heard it, but the way it's placed in this movie is fantastic. It's, you know, there are slight flaws. Like I say, the Rick as America message is hammered home slightly too hard, to the extent that, you know, sometimes you wish it could be a bit more subtle. And it does do the thing that a lot of studio pictures did in that day, which is, we've had a lot of talking, the audience's attention might be waning a bit, throw in a musical number. But other than that, it's an awesome movie. I would literally give this a 9. No, in fact, I'm going to give it a 10. This is a 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10 movie. I love it. I hope the other people reviewing it for this channel like it just as much. Casablanca, if you've not seen it, see it. If you've not got it, get it. I think you get the impression that I like this movie. So I hope you enjoy the other reviews, and thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. See ya.